Notifications as governance. An interruption is not only a momentary disturbance, it is a small reallocation of authority over what matters. When it repeats, it becomes a pattern that teaches the mind what to expect and what to prioritize. Frequent notifications reshape identity and judgment over time by training attention to treat external prompts as the default agenda and immediate response as the definition of competence. Consider a generic system that delivers alerts, messages, reminders, updates, pings. Each alert is a bid for a scarce resource, and the explicit constraint is this: attention is finite and serial. Only one thought can occupy the foreground at a time, and switching has a cost. The system does not need to dominate all hours to govern. It only needs to puncture continuity often enough that uninterrupted thought becomes the exception. Now observe the incentives. The sender is rewarded when the alert is opened, acknowledged, or acted upon. The platform is rewarded when engagement rises. The recipient is rewarded with relief. Uncertainty is reduced. Social risk is managed. A task is checked off. A small question is answered. These rewards are immediate, measurable, and frequent. A feedback loop forms. The system learns which prompts extract a response, sends more of those, and the recipient learns that responsiveness produces quick closure. Over time, the cue response pattern becomes automatic. It is easier to comply than to reestablish the original train of thought. There is also a trade-off: responsiveness versus depth. In a notification-driven environment, judgment is pressured toward what can be decided quickly, because quick decisions fit the rhythm of interruption. Slow judgments, those requiring context, waiting, or synthesis, are repeatedly deferred, not by explicit refusal, but by fragmentation. The mind begins to treat later as a vague container that never fills. A second trade-off appears: availability versus agency. If the default expectation is that every prompt deserves evaluation, then the absence of a prompt feels like a gap that should be filled. The system quietly sets the cadence. The person supplies the labor. In this way, notifications act as governance. They do not argue for values. They merely allocate attention in small increments until the allocation feels natural. Identity changes through repeated performance. If a person spends years being trained to confirm, react, clarify, and respond, then being a responsive person becomes a stable self-description. That identity then rationalizes the pattern. Interruptions are reinterpreted as proof of importance or proof of necessity. Meanwhile, capacities that require sustained continuity, careful reading, complex planning, moral deliberation, creative formation, receive fewer uninterrupted cycles, so they feel harder, so they are chosen less. Judgment shifts accordingly. What is most salient becomes what is most recent. What is most recent becomes what was most interruptive. The metric of what matters drifts from considered importance to captured attention. This is not a personal flaw. It is a predictable failure mode of systems that reward immediate acknowledgement and treat silence as lost opportunity. When interruptions become the primary organizer of the day, values are no longer expressed mainly through chosen commitments. They are expressed through what can repeatedly seize the foreground. Responsibility then becomes reactive, not the responsibility to think clearly, but the responsibility to keep up. Meaning narrows because meaning often depends on continuity, on returning to the same question long enough to see it from more than one angle. Over time, a person may find that judgment has become optimized for short horizons. What must be answered? What must be handled? What must be prevented from escalating? This produces competence in managing the immediate, but it can erode the capacity to discern the significant. Identity follows the same path. The self becomes the one who is reachable, current, and efficient, because those traits are continuously rewarded. The deeper question, what this attention is for, receives fewer repetitions, so it weakens, not by argument, but by neglect. No system is neutral. A notification regime encodes a theory of the human, that the person is a node to be updated, a queue to be serviced, a surface to be tapped for response. To notice this is to see that interruptions are not merely inconvenient. They are formative, and formation is always a statement about value. Consider a single recent interruption and examine it as governance rather than as content. Name 3 things: what it offered as a reward, what it displaced, and what kind of person it implicitly asked you to be in that moment. Notice, without defense or condemnation, how often the same request is made and how rarely it needs to be spoken aloud. Attention becomes identity by repetition, and judgment follows the rhythms it is given.